to start learning saxophone. Today we're just going to learn how to put our saxophones together and how to make a sound on it. But that's the beginning part of playing saxophone. Are you ready? Let's go! And welcome to Musicians Edition. This is our very first saxophone lesson. All right, so the first thing we need to learn is how to put our saxophone together. Now, just to clarify, we are working on the alto saxophone. All right, so I have my case here, and of course, we're gonna carefully open it up. So, the first thing when I'm setting up my saxophone is I usually pull out my reed first. Why? The reed has to be wet, so I just use this time to get my reed wet. And there are two options you can do. You can either just put it in like a cup of water and let it sit there. That's a little too much for me personally, so I just pop it right in my mouth and just let it soak in there when I put my saxophone together. So and you just kind of let it sit in here while you put your saxophone together. All right, but I'll take it out when I'm talking. All right, so the first thing we have is the body of our saxophone. That's the biggest part of your saxophone, the huge hunk. All right, and then we have this. This is the neck of the saxophone. All it is, it just has our octave key here and the cork. And what you're gonna do is just put the neck onto the body, just like this. Now, something you wanna pay attention to is your octave key here. This here is where your thumb goes, and you wanna make sure that you have this aligned right to when the key hits. Hold on, let me set this down real quick so we can get a better look. So when I click this button, you can see that the octave key goes up. That's what you want to do. Then you're just going to tighten her up. You'll either have one pin or two pins here, and you're just going to want to tighten it up. So my saxophone, the silver saxophone here, has two. My alto back here has one. This here is my first saxophone that I had. It's a Bundy. This is an AIK. I don't know much about this brand. It was just pretty, and it was on sale, and it played a little nicer than my Bundy, so why not? All right, anyway, back to our lesson. Next, we have the mouthpiece. This part here is just the mouthpiece. This part here is the ligature. Yours may be silver, like the one on this saxophone. That's still a ligature. There's just different types for different reasons. This is just an upgraded ligature, that's all. And what the ligature does, the ligature is going to hold our reed in. Now, I like to put my mouthpiece onto the cork before I put the ligature and the reed on. So that's what we'll do. Now you want to be careful putting this on. So I hold my saxophone right here. I'm not hitting the octave keys because I don't want to pinch them, move them, break them. So I hold around. And then I kind of just push and twist a little until it's in. Now you don't want to push in too far or you're not going to be able to get your mouthpiece out, and you don't want to leave it so far out. Now in band, normally we tune to each other, and that's how you can tell where your mouthpiece will go on the cork. We'll get to the tuning part later. This is just putting our saxophone together and getting a noise out of it. Okay, so now we're gonna put our ligature on. And the ligatures, depending on what they are, have different directions. So my ligature, the gold part, goes on the top like this. You see that? But on my Bundy, which is probably closer to what you have, the silver parts and the tie downs are on the bottom. You see that? So most likely yours is like this saxophone. All right, so then after our reed is nice and wet, we're going to just put it on the mouthpiece like this, and you want to align it best you can. And then put your ligature on. And then you're going to want to tighten it down. So your saxophone should look like this when put together, with your reed looking like that. You see how it's pretty well aligned, it's not all crooked. You want it to be aligned. And then we're gonna have our neck straps. And we have our neck straps. Now the reason we have the neck strap is so we can comfortably play without our saxophones running away from us. So to put the neck strap on, obviously you could just put it on. And then on the saxophone, there's this little ring here. And all you're gonna do is just clip it right into the ring. And then adjust the neck strap to where it's comfortable. And our saxophones usually sit on the side like this. Some people play like this with their saxophone in between the legs. I usually play like this, and I scoot, to be honest, I scoot over to the edge of the seat because I've had a lot of incidences where my saxophone is banging on the chair, and I don't like that. So I usually scoot over to the edge of the seat so my saxophone cannot bang on the chair. It's against my leg. And then to make a sound, you just need to slightly bite down on the mouthpiece, push your lips up, and you want to hold that reed in and just blow on the air. Okay, so take a moment to look at my embouchure here. I slightly bite, my lip is kind of under, and then I close my mouth around the mouthpiece so air doesn't leak out. So go ahead and take a moment to try to just get a sound out of your saxophone. Great, how'd you do? That's just how it should sound. And that's how we put our saxophone together and get a noise. If you're just trying to get a noise and just want to practice that, you can also just have your mouthpiece and ligature off the neck piece, and you can just practice your embouchure just on this. It's a little squeakier, it kind of hurts my ears, but you can just do that just to practice without having to put your whole saxophone together. All right, and remember, you always want your reed wet. So if it got dry between the time you put your saxophone together, or if there was like a long pause of something, always want your reed wet. So it's always wise to have a cup of water next to you. Of course, probably should put it in like a container that has a lid so you don't kick it over. And sometimes you just, I'll be licking my reed once in a while because you always want it wet. All right, well, I think that's enough for our saxophone lesson for today. All right, so ready to take apart and clean our instrument. Now, cleaning our instrument is super important. It keeps the finish very nice, and it makes sure your inside stays clean too. And just making a note and helping your instrument staying clean, it's very wise to either not eat or drink anything before playing your saxophone, because what is in your mouth goes into your instrument. So if you're eating sugar or whatever, it goes into your saxophone on the inside of it, and it just sits there and collects. Gross. We don't want that. And if you happen to eat and then you're like, oh shoot, I need to play my instrument, just take a moment to brush your teeth real quick and then play. Okay, so taking apart our saxophone. So I usually just unhook my neck strap here so I'm free. And we're just gonna work opposite from what we did. So I'm going to just, undo my ligature here, and then be careful with your reed. So just put that aside for now. And the reed, you want to try to keep this in best of condition. Now they are going to wear out over time. If you chip them, they're no good. You're going to need a new one. So try not to chip them. You want to be careful with them. All right. And they usually just come in the little cases. So the reeds usually come in cases like this. You want to keep them because they keep your reed nice and protected. So I'm just going to put that in here, boom, protected. And then I'm just going to put it in my case in a secure place where I know where it's at. Okay, and then I usually take my mouthpiece off here. And I usually just take a little, there are cleaning kits for saxophones, so here's mine. And I don't put this all the way through because I don't like to get it stuck, but I just kind of wipe the inside of the mouthpiece here on both ends. And sometimes I'll just use my pinky because it's smaller so I can get a little in there, and that's pretty good. Now, most mouthpieces come with a little case thing. Mine does here, so I will put the ligature back on so I don't lose it. And this is the time I put it on backwards, it's not important. And then I just put my case right back on here and put it in its secure spot in the case. Okay, now remember, we had to tighten these guys here on the neck. So we're gonna have to unloosen them because we don't want to break anything. So mine are nice and loose, and slowly just pull, and I turn mine a little bit. And remember to be careful with this octave key here. And there we go. I shake it out a little bit and you'll see some spit and stuff kind of come out of it. I know it's kind of gross. They have ones that are little enough to go into the neck. I always get mine stuck, so I don't ever trust it. I treat it like the mouthpiece. I just kind of go in here and I scrub it pretty good. There we go, just like that on the end. I make sure my cork's not wet. I want to keep my cork as good as possible. The corks do need to be replaced within time, so keep that in mind, but we want to keep them as nice as possible and for as long as possible. And then you want to just put it where it belongs in your case. All right, now we have the body of our saxophone, and this is where I actually will. So your actual cleaning kit should have one that has a weight on the end here, and then it has the cloth piece here. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna put the weight into the top part of our saxophone here, just like that, and feed it in. And then towards the bottom of the saxophone, I don't know if you can see that, you should be able to see the blue weight here. You just kind of stick your hand down the bell here, and you should be able to kind of grab it. And sometimes you gotta turn the saxophone a little bit to get a better handle of it, but you see, I'm able to just pull the string, it pulls my cloth in, and there we have it. And then I just put the body back, and usually, well, with this saxophone, with it being silver, it oxidizes and gets kind of gross fast, so I have a cloth that I will just wipe it down real quick. And usually once a month I'll give it a real good polishing. Even if you have the gold tone silver like this one, you know, it's still a good idea just to give it a nice wipe down, because the oils on our fingers can make the instrument kind of yucky. And, you know, a well-maintenance instrument will treat you a lot better and last you a lot longer. Repairs are not cheap, ever, no matter what it is. All right, and then you don't want to forget your neck strap. I have a tendency to forget mine on after I pack my case, and you just put it in its designated area in the case. And there you have it. That's how you clean your saxophone and put it together. But next time we're gonna start learning some notes. All right, thanks for joining me, and until next time.